and today we're going to preview the new soccer season, which begins this weekend when Liverpool on Friday night play Norwich at home. And it's, of course, something that many of us have been waiting for, having felt something missing from our lives during the summer. And to discuss it, I'm joined by Liam Brady and by John Giles. Liam, it's been a long wait for the season, but given how exciting last season was, particularly the race for the Premier League title between City and Liverpool, it was a very compelling season last season, I thought, and the standard that those two clubs set was pretty high.
No, it was extremely high, Eamon. It was probably the best league title race we've seen between two teams for a long, long time. They traded blow for blow. I think Liverpool had a few draws at the turn of the year.
Yes,
that probably cost them in the end. It was a great Premier League, and two smashing teams to watch. They both play really attractive football, really good players they've got. And, that's why I think everybody's waiting to see what happens this year again. Can Liverpool kind of repeat that challenge against Manchester City, who have all the resources? But, Liverpool ran them very close last year, and I think it won't change this year. I think Klopp wants it, and I think they've got a great spirit about them, so I expect them to have a real go at winning it again this year.
Would you agree, Liam, with the general view that people have that these two teams in England are way ahead of the rest right now?
Well, I was expecting Spurs to do something in the transfer market. I think Spurs on the day when they have their best players out, can be a match for any team. But I was, the squad, the lack of depth in the squad found them out last year, and I was expecting money to be spent because they didn't spend anything last year. And I find that hard to understand because they're not that far away. I think Manchester United with Solskjaer, I think there's a big question mark. I think Harry Maguire will be a very good addition to the team, but I don't think he's a Van Dijk by any means. I can't see him make the difference to Man United that Van Dijk made to Liverpool when he went there.
Yes.
Arsenal and Chelsea, I think they've got huge question marks against them. I think Frank Lampard going into Chelsea will find life difficult because he's lacking, I think, strikers. He's lacking goals. Hazard is gone. So I think he's got a difficult job. And Arsenal, well, they haven't addressed the problems in defence in the transfer market. So I don't expect anything to come from them either. So Liverpool and Man City again this year for me, Eamon.
Yeah, we'll come to each of the big clubs individually. Breaking news as we're talking on Wednesday morning is that it looks like Dybala may leave Juventus to go, having turned Manchester United down. It looks like he might be bound for Spurs, Liam. London, his girlfriend wants to live in London, and they have signed a very good, this is true, they've signed a very good player called Dunphy, who they signed, I think, from Lyon, one of the French clubs, who's apparently, I'm told, an outstanding player. John, the big two, we saw them on Sunday in the Community Shield. Would you agree with the consensus that they are a long way ahead of the rest for the reasons Liam stated? Some of them there, Chelsea, Arsenal, Spurs, all having problems of their own, and these two big clubs getting stronger.
I don't think Manchester City have got stronger, Eamon, to be quite honest.
Right.
I mean, they signed a good midfield player.
Yeah.
what's his
Rodri,
name? Rodri
yeah.
looks very, very good. They've lost company.
Yeah, Rodri came from Atletico, we should say, and he looked decent.
Yeah, he
in
looked
the
good.
Community Shield game
yeah.
against Liverpool. Yeah,
yeah. Now that's a good signing for them. They haven't replaced company, which I think is huge. I'm very, very surprised they didn't go all the way for
Harry Maguire.
I'm really surprised at that. But there again, I think the problems at City because they're in it. There's some
the financial
play in that
rules they're said to have breached them. I think they're being ultra cautious now.
I think so. I think
the penalty is being left out of the Champions League next season.
Yeah, so I think that's one of the reasons. I think they would have gone for him anyway. But as you say, they're in a bit of bother with the system that's there at the moment. So not replacing company, I think is a biggie. For them. I don't think Liverpool had to do anything with the squad that they had. I think also that this Man City squad is getting a bit older.
Yes,
it's going to be. I just think
David Silva 32.
Yeah,
Aguero now over the 30 mark.
Yeah,
they're two in particular that stand out.
Yeah, so I think it's come to Liverpool more so than Man City. I think if Man City signed Maguire, I would have said City would that be that little bit in front. Having not acquired him, I'd say I think it's slightly gone towards Liverpool. Spurs, you don't know what's going on at Spurs. I mean, like Pochettino's in the paper a couple of weeks ago saying, I don't want to be called the manager anymore, I'm the coach. And I think that was because he's obviously not really in charge of what's coming and going.
Yeah, he said, he was asked about the transfer and he said, look, the transfers have nothing to do with me. I don't think you should call me the manager of the club. I am the coach.
Yeah. And
that business. Now, that's a development in football. I mean, I think Solskjaer are probably in the same position. And the situation with Klopp at Liverpool appears to be that he deals with a small group who are in charge of recruitment, but the relationship appears to be good.
I think he's in charge of the situation. I think there's a difference between having a group or not having a group, but being in charge of what you want. I think Klopp has that. But Pochettino is obviously objecting to publicly. He did say, I don't want to be even named as the manager. I want to be named as the coach. He said, because they do have a selective with the chairman being a very, very, I'd say...
Daniel Levy is the executive chairman there. In other words, he is the guy who decides who comes, who goes, who gets paid, who gets contract renewals. He does it.
Well, I don't know if he's done it for the last couple of years when Pochettino... Well, he hasn't done much. Pochettino's performed miracles there. I think everybody would agree. And I think he has been listened to in the last couple of years. I think that's why he's shocked now that having done what he's done, that now we're back to, well, this is what we'll tell you that we're going to do. Because he wouldn't make those statements. If he was happy with the situation, the two of them would work together, say, okay, we've done great, now you get on, who do you want, we'll go and get him, if we can afford to do it, obviously the financial situation. That's not the case.
Yeah, Liam, you're closer than us to the Tottenham situation. They're in a new stadium which has cost a lot, and there was a big cost overrun and it was delayed, the opening of it. Pochettino's role, he did very publicly disassociate himself from the transfer business. What do you make of it?
Well, I think it's the way of the world, Eamon, now. I don't think any manager, maybe Guardiola has the absolute say at Man City. But I think most clubs now have a transfer board that, maybe 3 or 4 people, including what we call the manager, chief executive, head of scouting, will sit down and they'll go through the various options and then they'll make a decision. I think probably Pochettino is frustrated, as you say, after the good work he's done, finishing up playing in Champions League final last season, keeping Tottenham in the Champions League places, that they don't follow him absolutely, as John has suggested, and that's what's probably annoying him. But that's the way of the world for probably 99.9% of managers around coaches around the world. They don't have the say now in the transfer market.
Now you were in Italy for a long time, Liam. You were there, I think, 7-8 years, was it? And you were at Juventus, big clubs, and Inter, Juventus, Sampdoria, and it was never the way, was it, in Italy?
No, they had a general manager, a football manager, and he was close to the president or the chairman, and they would kind of plan the signings of new players. I remember being at Sampdoria, and the president there, Mantovani, had a plan over the course of time to buy really good young Italian players. And it proved to be really successful. They went on to win the league. They got to a European Cup final. And they bought the likes of Mancini and Vialli when they were young lads. They were 17, 18, 19 years of age. And that had nothing to do with the coach.
Yeah.
And that was like, well, it's nearly 40 years ago, Eamon. So that's the way it's always been in Italy. And on the continent, now clubs like Real Madrid and Barcelona, unless you're a very special coach, you've never had that power. So it's now come to England, and there's only one man I can see, having that absolute power, and that's Guardiola at Man City. Maybe Klopp has much more power now.
Yes.
But as John said, he didn't have much to do with the squad because it's a fine, strong squad, and Liverpool bought those players, the likes of Robertson, the likes of Van Dijk, all sat down, probably 3 or 4 people saying, these are our targets, which one do you prefer? And I think that's the way things are done now.
Yeah, John, it's a culture change for you and for those of us who were working in England, where in your case with Don Revie or Matt Busby and people like that. And I think Ferguson would have had the last say, no question about
Wenger,
that.
And Wenger for a long time.
And Wenger at Arsenal. I think for a long time, those guys were the guys who called the shots, much as Liam is rightly, I think, identifying Guardiola as the one guy in England who can say, I want him, and we're going to get him.
Yeah, I agree what's happened. I understand it, Eamon.
Yeah.
It doesn't make it right.
No, it doesn't make it right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's what I'm saying with Pochettino now. I think Pochettino, where we started off talking about, actually got into a position this year, doing what he did under very, very difficult circumstances, to be in a position to say, I've earned my right to do this. That's what I think.
Yeah.
Right? And the chairman, you see, there's 2 other guys, I should have got their names to it, along with the chairman. You don't hear of them, Eamon.
No.
Right. Now, if they've got the influence, right, that we say that they have, and I'm sure they do have, why isn't one of the managers?
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like if they have, and this is what annoys me, 90% of the job in management, Eamon, 90% of the job is getting rid of the players you don't want and getting the players in that you do want.
Yeah.
That's 90% of the job, in my experience, in management.
Yes.
If that is taken away from you, right, and you haven't got the control to bring in who you want and get rid of who you don't want, you're losing 90% of control as a manager. And that's what Pochettino has come out public to say. I don't want to be named as the manager. I'm the coach.
I don't want responsibility unless I have the power.
What he's saying in effect is, if these transfers don't work out, I'm going to get the blame for this. Wenger said near the end of his days at Arsenal, he said, when they were talking about getting a director of football in, he said, I don't mind over the years taking responsibility and the blame for players that I bought, but I don't want to be into position of taking the responsibility and the blame for players I didn't buy.
Yes.
And that's the problem with it. You see, Levy has a history. When Harry Redknapp, you go back to when Harry Redknapp took over.
Yeah,
they were in bits, Eamon.
Yeah.
They were near the bottom of the table because he'd been messing about. In my opinion, that's what I call it, messing about with the transfers and who's coming and who's going. Harry Redknapp came in and did a really good job. But when Harry got it right, he came back in again.
Yes,
and that's what he's doing now.
Right.
He's hardly spent any money. Pochettino's got them there. Now, in my opinion, instead of saying to Pochettino, okay, what do you want? Hasn't happened.
Yeah.
Now, I understand what Liam is saying. It is what's happening with nearly all countries around the world.
All clubs.
But again, it doesn't make it right.
No.
Because it's what's happening.
It just, what do you say to that, Liam? I mean, it's logic, isn't it? The people with the knowledge, that is the football people, should be making the calls. They're not making the calls.
Yeah, but they shot themselves in the foot down through the years, Eamon. I think, without going into something that's really controversial, I think a lot of managers abused the power they had by buying players that was going to be advantageous to them financially without, getting into... And I think they shot themselves in the foot, so they're not trusted anymore. They don't trust one person anymore to do that. And that's why clubs have these 3 or 4 man committee to decide on what the transfer policy is going to be.
Yeah, I say...
Pochettino, Liam, Pochettino earned his trust. No, hasn't he earned his trust? I mean, his last couple he hasn't been doing that. He's doing a great job getting players in and that. I understand what
what Liam is saying, I agree with. I tell you why, John. There have been managers who have, down the years, increasingly in England, made curious signings. There has been fiddling. There has been corruption with agents.
I'm not doubting that.
No, I know that.
I'm not doubting that.
But Liam is saying, and I agree with him, that that culture where the manager was making those big calls and about how much you should pay or how much you should charge for a player you're selling, because the culture was corrupted, then guys in suits stepped in and said, "You're not. We're taking that power away."
I understand that, but that doesn't have to be the case in every club. I mean, Pochettino has definitely been an honest guy. He's done his stuff. I can understand the directors and everybody being very, very upset, to say the least, to know that a manager has been on the make.
Yeah.
But if you get a manager in, like he's been there for whatever it is now, 5 years, he's obviously a guy you can trust because he's hardly been given any money to spend players anyway. And when he's been given it and done the job that he's done, right, it is an excuse over the years as well, Eamon. And it's a good excuse that the manager's been dishonest in doing so. Therefore, we're going to take over. Because it's my experience in football. Directors in my day did not like to give you the power to do what needed to be done. They didn't like it. And what's happened in recent years, and it has been a good excuse for them to do it. But if you go back over the time when Wenger was doing his stuff and Ferguson was doing their stuff, do you know what I mean? Now, Pochettino, in my opinion, has earned the right to be trusted. He doesn't need 2 guys now and Levy to tell him what he's needed to be doing. And that's what he's protesting about. And I understand, generally, that is the way it's happened. But the directors always wanted that. They had a good excuse with the dishonesty that was happening in the game to do what they did. But I'm talking about Pochettino's case now particularly. I think it's been a really dreadful situation that he's been put in now.
Okay, well, we'll see how that plays out because as we talk, Dybala may sign for Spurs today from Juventus. I think he's a world-class player, a genuine world-class player. He's been frozen out.
Well, he's Argentinian as well, isn't he, Eamon? Maybe Pochettino has identified him, but that suggests to me that Eriksen will be leaving.
That's right,
I think it'll be, if they do get Dybala in, I don't see, them playing both Eriksen and Dybala in the starting lineup. I just don't. With Harry Kane, I don't see that happening. So it probably suggests to me that Eriksen will be leaving, possibly for Real Madrid. Yeah,
and just on that, Liam, there is breaking news this morning. Now, there's only tomorrow, Thursday, at 5 p.m, the British transfer window closes. The European one stays open for another 3 weeks. But the breaking news is that Eriksen won't be going to Manchester United, but may well be going on a cut price deal to Real Madrid. One thing I'd like to ask both of you about, and you, Liam, I'll start with, the incredible inflation in prices for players that we've seen spectacularly this summer. People you've never heard of gone for 50, 60 million and people gone for 25, 30 million. It's the inflation is extraordinary, Liam, isn't it?
It is, but we've talked about this before, Eamon. It's all to do with the fact that the English clubs in particular are getting so much money from TV,
yes,
and that's kind of pushing the thing upwards all the time. It's about 40 years ago that we saw the first £1 million transfer in England when Trevor Francis went from Birmingham City to Nottingham Forest, and everybody said, "Wow!" And now they're going for 150 million, and you're talking about players that we haven't really identified as being top players who are going for 60, 70 million. Like Harry Maguire, with all due respects, I think he's a good player, but as I said, I don't think he's a Van Dijk, and he's going for 70 million or 70 million plus.
Yeah,
it's crazy stuff, but it's all dictated by the money that the clubs are getting from sponsorship and from TV rights.
Yeah,
it's huge. The game is huge. The business of football now is colossal. It's a worldwide product that everybody wants a part of.
And the Premier League is the most popular. I think it's 250 countries now takes it live. John, just one other.
Sorry, can I just make a comment on that? I mean, Murdoch is a very, very clever man, right? Murdoch is putting the money into the television, right? And he
doesn't own Sky anymore, by the way. He doesn't own Sky anymore.
Well, whoever's doing it, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a business thing for them. They're throwing money at the Premier League clubs, who then are buying the best players in the world.
Yes.
They're not doing it for the good of their health, these guys. They're buying the best players in the world, so therefore people around the country and around the world will buy the television card.
Yeah, well, they're big brands. I mean, Liverpool, Manchester United, Arsenal, just to take three clubs, Chelsea, Tottenham Hotspur. These are brands that go back like decades. They're big, strong brands. That's why it sells in South America, in Asia, in the United States.
I know that.
That's why they go on tours.
No, but the point I'm making is with Murdoch. Murdoch is, everybody said, what about the wages now? Murdoch is a very, very clever man. He's given the clubs the money to buy the best players. So if the best players are in the world, are in the Premiership, then everybody wants to watch the Premiership. So the money that he's I'm talking about I'm making a point about why there's so much money in the game now for the players. Because this guy is very, very clever. The money that he's paying the players, that's been paid for the players, is buttons.
Yeah.
In relation to what Murdoch was doing on a business sense.
Yeah, but one other factor I would like you and Liam to talk about is, because this is what I believe, the reason also you're getting inflation for somebody like Harry Maguire is that the pool of really top players is growing smaller. I mean, it's harder now to find top players.
Well, it looks that way. There's definitely. I mean, there less. There seems to be less good players coming into the game.
Central defenders, for example, Liam. Central defenders. Is that not a big part of the reason why Harry Maguire is worth 80 million sterling? That there are so few top-class defenders in the world.
Absolutely. Like Arsenal are proof of that. We haven't had a decent centre back. Koscielny, when he was fit and strong, was a very good player. But we've bought probably 6, and none of them have turned out to be a top player.
No,
and that's why they struggled in recent seasons because of that. And you look around and you see the likes of Chiellini and Bonucci still playing at Juventus.
Yes,
and they're well into their 30s. It's a position that maybe it's a position that young lads don't want to play anymore, because you have to be tough, you have to be strong, you have to be brave. And I don't know, perhaps that's part of the reason that they're not just don't come through anymore. It's not fashionable to be a centre back and do the dirty work. But there is generally a lack of players. But I think in England, there's a lot of good young players coming through now in the last 2 or 3 years, Eamon, and I think that's why England are a decent team. again in international football. I do think that the academies in England have deserved some credit for the amount of players that are coming through now.
Right.
I think what's happened as well, Eamon, the role of a centre half now has changed dramatically.
Yes.
From our time, where you had Big Jack. Say Big Jack Charlton, for example, now was a good defensive centre half.
Yeah.
Would he be able to play now when there's what's more expected of them, getting on the ball and doing what the things that we don't always agree with? But the role has changed.
Yes.
In where you had a big stopper, Mike England, and various players, or even Tony Adams.
Yes.
Over the years, the centre half was a big brave guy who went and won it. There's less of that required now. There's more required of them getting on the ball and playing on the ball now than ever before. So that whole thing is changed. You've got the young kids playing, you know what I mean? Like, say, the young kids are players not coming through.
If you look at Liverpool's back four, you've got Trent Alexander-Arnold, who's a footballer. He's not the best defender in the world, but very, very good, outstanding footballer. You got Robertson. Again, I think he is a very good defender, actually. I think he's a complete all-rounder, a very, very good footballer. You got Gomez, Matip and Van Dijk, all of whom are very, very comfortable on the ball, and they're the best club in England. And the other side of that coin, John, is what you referred to earlier. Manchester City, with all their resources at their disposal, big club, winning trophies in the Champions League, all of that, they haven't been able to find a really good centre half.
No, well, again, their emphasis, Eamon, is playing and playing and playing. All I'm saying is
that a good defender, John, that you mentioned before, they haven't replaced Vincent Kompany. They can't replace Vincent Kompany because there's no one out there.
But what I'm saying is, in the game generally, there's less required of the centre halves than there was in the old days, where there were more of them. That's what you're saying. There's less of the defenders centre halves. But again, I go back to Big Jack. Big Jack was centre half. He wasn't that particularly good on the ball. Would he be considered today?
I think so.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
He played in a World Cup winning side.
I know, but the things have changed.
Yeah.
So there was less. What I'm saying, there was less demanded of the players then doing certain things. That's topical, if that's the right word. Centre halves now have to get on the ball. They have to be able to play. They have to be able to do this. They have to be able to do that. That's the way the game has gone. So there's less. Like I said, there was more of the Jack Charltons around today. Than the guys who can actually play. So therefore, they're scarce because they don't be given. They're not needed or not wanted as much as they used to be.
Liam, just in terms of the big two clubs in England and who's going to win the Premier League, John has already expressed the view that Liverpool's stronger at the back. Manchester City haven't really addressed that. There's no replacement for Vincent Kompany. They pulled out on a Maguire sort of auction. I think too that that is a weakness in the balance of their side that will come back to bite them. What's your feeling on that, as opposed to Liverpool? In terms of winning the league, Liverpool would desperately want to win the Premier League. I think it's been a long, long time, and ironically, Manchester City would desperately like to win the Champions League, which Liverpool hold as well. How do you see that battle resolving itself? Do you think it'll be tight again?
Well, I agree totally with John. Kompany was a big player for Man City, and it showed at the end of the season how valuable he was to them. He kind of showed great leadership in what was an amazing run and an amazing run for Manchester City to not drop any points. He was a real influence in them winning the league, and he's gone now, and they haven't replaced him. And we've all had doubts about the likes of Stones,
Otamendi.
Otamendi, he makes too many mistakes, as we've pointed out down through the seasons he's been at Manchester City. So that is definitely a plus for Liverpool. And I think if you said to the two managers, right, to Guardiola, you can have the Champions League, and the club, you can have the league this season, they'd agree to it straight away. I see it as between them, and I do agree with John that the balance has slightly tilted to Liverpool. Just judging on who's gone and the squads increasing in age and so forth and like that, I think the balance has tilted to Liverpool. But Manchester City have so many fine players going forward, Eamon, that they're probably not be too worried about what's going on at the back, but they'll probably back themselves to score more goals than they concede because they are extra special going forward. But I think Liverpool have a huge chance, but I can't see anybody from looking at the transfer market and what's going on of breaking into the challenge for the title between those two clubs.
Now, just a point to put to you, John, and to Liam, both Klopp and Guardiola have complained quite bitterly and vocally in recent weeks about the dangers of burnout to players, too much being asked upon them. I would have a fear now for Liverpool in particular that Mane played in the African Cup of Nations final for Senegal just 2 weeks ago. Mo Salah was playing for Egypt, who got to the semi-final. Firmino played in the Copa America, and Brazil got to the final and won it. And they're back, and these guys won't have a rest. They won't have a pre-season. Guardiola also has players who are away at the Copa America. Aguero, for example, didn't play in the Community Shield because he was just the burnout factor. I mean, both you and Liam have played at the very highest level, at the most demanding level in every competition, at the death. It strikes me, John, that you do need a break at times. And then when you come back and either you're playing in one of these big tournaments or you go on one of these mad marketing tours to Asia, to the United States, they're asking far too much of players.
It's too much, there's no doubt about that.
And will there be a knock-on? That's the question into this season. I'd fear for these, particularly Liverpool, in the early months of the season.
Well, I think Manchester City had a good few players playing in it as well.
And Mahrez played in the
It doesn't matter if it's Manchester City or Manchester. The principle is players are human, and it definitely is not the right way to be doing it. And it's greed, not from the players, but it's greed from the associations. Because what's happened, as we know, we had the World Cup, and then we had the European Cup, or European Championships, and there was a break in between. So they were every 2 years. Now, what they've done now, they've created another competition in between those 2 years. Yeah. Because from the association's point of view...
This is the Nations Cup.
Nations Cup, right. From their point of view, they don't care.
No.
It's not their players. They're only making money on it.
Well, my question is...
Does it tell?
Does it pose a real threat?
Yes, it does, definitely. Because players are only human, like anybody else. You're running around, you're training. It's 9 months of the year anyway.
It used to be. It's 11 now.
I had one experience of it where I played in South Africa during the close season. When Don Revy let me go over to Durban to play. And I played and I didn't get any rest. And I definitely felt it.
Yeah.
It's that's why you have a rest. That's why there used to be a close season, because players to have a rest. Yeah, now they're not getting it. They're going into, as you say, these major competitions now they are. Yes. It's not right, and it's just greed from the associations.
Liam, would you see that as a real serious problem? And Guardiola and Klopp aren't the only ones, but they were the two who were very vocal in recent weeks about what was being asked of their players.
Well, I'd see it as not quite the problem that you're saying it could be, because they have such big squads now, the teams, Players don't play week in, week out. You have the opportunity to rest players. Like Liverpool will rest players when Klopp thinks they have a fixture they can handle and maybe give his best players a rest. I think it's just the way things are now. I think players become... used to it, and they realise, well, I'm only going to get 3 weeks or 4 weeks off to rest, and that's going to be it, And I think managers and clubs have to recognise, when players have had the season go maybe beyond their domestic season because of international football, well, they will look at them and say, okay, well, they're not quite ready to come back for pre-season with the other players. So we're just going to give them a bit more time to recover after a season, and they come back later on than the other lads.
Yeah, well,
I think footballers are definitely tuned into now. 3 weeks is probably all I'm going to get as a break, and that's the way things are.
I think in the case, John, I wouldn't agree with Liam. I'd just put it to you, Liam. In the case of Liverpool, their front three, Mane, Salah, and Firmino, he couldn't rest all of them at once, and I think that is a problem, John. It would be a problem for Liverpool with those players, none of whom have had a pre-season and none of whom have had a break.
I think it is a problem, Eamon. I don't agree with Liam on it that you can rest them in between, because those lads have come back. They don't have a pre-season.
No.
Then, Eamon. You need the rest, then you have the pre-season, then you get going again. And what's happening, it's going to affect the big clubs like Manchester City, and because they're the best players and they're playing in these particular competitions. So I think it's very, very difficult to rest them to make up for not having their rest in the summer. I do. I think it's wrong. I think it's very difficult for the clubs, and it's not their fault. It's the greed of the associations, because it's no skin off their nose. Whatever all they do is make more money to create more competitions, make more money. They don't care about the players. If I were Guardiola and Klopp, I'd be complaining about it. And just to go again, Liam Plaskett, I mean, if it was so easy for these managers to do, I'm not saying Liam saying it was easy to do, they wouldn't be complaining about it, Liam.
No, just a couple of more things I'd like to focus in on. Liam, Manchester United, always the focus of so much attention. They've got Harry Maguire. Pogba has been playing up all through pre-season. Obviously, Raiola, his agent, and he wants, it looks like, to go to Real Madrid. And it looks like Zidane and Madrid are prepared to pay 150 million for Pogba. The other player who's there on strike, it appears, is Lukaku, who won't go on tour. And that it's hard to see an upside for United at the moment. What's your assessment, Liam, first of all, of the Pogba situation and the way he's behaving, and Lukaku, and what's your assessment of their prospects for the coming season?
I actually think nobody's interested in taking Pogba, Eamon. If you'd watched them...
Well, Zidane is crazy for him. Zidane definitely wants him, Liam, and he wants to pay 150 million, and he is making big demands of Perez, the Madrid president. I can assure you that's true. We just had a report on our other podcast from Spain. Zidane is mad to get him.
Well, why doesn't he get him then? What's stopping that happening? Because, if Solskjaer has any sense, or United have any sense, if they get their money back, you get him out the door,
Right.
He's going to be a problem going forward. And, well, I'll believe it when I see it, Eamon, that Real Madrid want him.
Yeah, no, I feel exactly the same way, but I know it's true, and it's public.
If you were Zidane and you watched him play, the last season, and I'm sure Zidane had plenty of opportunity to put his television on and watch him playing in the Champions League or in the Premiership, you wouldn't touch him with a barge pole.
Right. I agree. I agree with you.
We agree with that, Liam.
United should get him out. If they're getting over 100 million for him, if they're getting the money back, they get him out and get some other players in to replace him. They won't miss him, not at all. I'd have him out. I'd have him out the door.
I think we all would, Liam. But I think the point Eamon is making is that Zidane, according to Eamon, is desperate to get him. And there's been funny remarks.
But John, if he was desperate to get him, why hasn't it happened?
I don't know.
United want it. United don't see a future with him, do they?
I think funny enough, Liam Solskjaer a few weeks ago was raving about him. He said he was a great pro. He's no problem whatsoever. He's a terrific player. He doesn't want him to go.
I think they say those things to make sure they get top dollar in the transfer market. You can't possibly have someone like that. The Manchester United fans don't want him there.
Well,
I don't want him.
He's still there, Liam.
It's an interesting.
He's still there because I reckon that people feel the same way as I do, John. They don't want to go near him.
Well, we all agree with you, Liam, totally. But there is no doubt. Zidane has said it publicly, and we've had a correspondent from Madrid tell us today on our other podcast, our Spanish football podcast, that there is no question. Not only does Zidane want him and has said so publicly, they're prepared to give United a €50 million profit, which is unbelievable, but it's true. Now, I suppose Zidane is French.
Well, why hasn't it happened, Eamon? Why hasn't it happened?
Because United don't want him to go. That's the story.
Well,
I know it's unbelievable.
I don't believe that.
Okay.
I don't believe it.
Okay, John,
I find it unbelievable. I believe it because you've got good content. I find it unbelievable that would be the case. But I think if it's true, it's true, Liam. You know, that's we don't agree with it, but if it's true, it's true. So
okay, a final question to both of you about Frank Lampard. Liam, you mentioned him earlier. He's gone to Chelsea. Only one Chelsea player got into double figures scoring last year. It was Eden Hazard, who has gone to Real Madrid. I think he did a really good job, Lampard, at Derby. Got them to the Championship playoff final. I was particularly impressed with the way they dispatched John's old club Leeds in the semi-final. A good young coach, but Abramovich isn't putting the money up anymore. That's a hell of a job, isn't it? You don't know where the goals are coming from. You don't have a transfer budget. Fair play to Frank.
I'm sure Chelsea down through the seasons have always had the expectations of winning the Premier League when the season kicks off, Eamon. But not this year. No, I don't think Abramovich can have that, and I don't think the fans will have it. I think they'll give Lampard a chance maybe to build a team.
Yes.
You know, Chelsea have a lot of talented players out on loan last season and the season before that, and I can see quite a few of them getting a chance under Lampard now. Good young players that have a future in the game, but they won't be expecting Lampard to challenge for the title. I don't think. I think what they want them to do is build a team, and maybe challenge in next year or the season after that with giving, you know, a lot of game time to a lot of these lads that have undoubted talent but are not proven at this level.
Yeah, John, Frank Lampard, great player in his time, I think, and someone who's respected and appears to conduct himself really well. But as Liam's pointed out there, you can't do it with kids, to quote Alan Hansen.
Yeah, well, I agree with Liam. I think, first of all, he'd be very, very popular with the fans.
Yeah.
And the expectations are not there, Eamon. You know, most managers who go into jobs, they're expecting the big clubs. Well, we've got to win the league, we've got to win the cup, we've got to do something. I think the fans are realistic about the whole situation. Here's a young man coming, he lost Hazard, he hasn't got the money to buy players. They won't be expecting, I don't think there'll be as much there won't be as much pressure on him, Eamon, to do it. As Liam said, if he's building it with young players, you know, the fans are not silly. They know they haven't been able to do this, hasn't been able to do that. And I think he'll make a good job of what he has available. And I think that's all the supporters of Chelsea will want. If he does extremely well, or gets a cup or that'd be great for him. But I think the expectation, and that's a lot in today's game. You know, when big managers come in, they expected to win the league. Like Sarri last year.
Yes.
You know, he did win the two trophies.
Yeah.
But it wasn't good enough, really, in the end, because the expectations were there. I think Frank Lampard has a good run. They'll give him a good run at that.
Okay, a final question about VAR, Liam. For or against? Because it's coming in, it's going to cause absolute murder, in my opinion, because there's new rules coming in with it. Are you for VAR or against?
From what I've seen so far, I'm for it. I think, 99.9% of the time they get the decision right. I still, and I've said this before on your podcast, Eamon, I still would like to hear the reasons why they reach. I think it would be a very good idea for people to explain the decision. and by hearing what they're saying or why they've reached the decision, just like we have in rugby union and cricket.
Yes.
But we're not going to get that this year, and I think there will be problems, but I'm for it in the end because I think they do, in a huge percentage of the time, reach the right decision.
John?
Yeah, I'm totally for it, Eamon. I think it's still early days for something like this. I think people who don't like it after the first season, actually there were some people against it before it even started. I think you've got to give it a chance. You know, we talk about rugby and cricket and all these variations. I mean, they had the problems early on, Eamon. This is a new thing and it's a very, very complicated situation, as we know. But what we have found, and the basic thing is, have they made the right decisions? And as Liam said, 95%, 99%, the decisions have been right. But the people who are opposing say it takes too long and it's this and it's that. They can put all those things right as they go along.
Okay.
I'd have no doubts about it, that in 5 years' time, I don't think anybody will be criticising VAR.
Okay, well, I can tell you, lads, in 5 weeks' time, and from now to 5 weeks' time, there's going to be absolute murder because I've looked at the new rules, but we'll talk about them another day.
But I mean, have the new rules got anything to do with VAR?
Yes.
You know,
the way VAR is interpreted.
But that's the problem.
It
you
is
know
the
what I mean?
problem.
It's not
VAR.
It's not VAR itself.
No, it's the way it's interpreted.
Well, that's a different argument, I think, altogether.
We'll have it too. John, Giles and Liam Brady, thank you both for joining us to preview the Premier League season and the rest of the season.